So my name is Brian Penny, and after John's talk, I'm glad I'm not an influencer. And I want to talk a little bit about my own journey and basically a tool that has helped me to transform my life and continues to help me to transform my life. And I want to start with a little bit of a story from my own life. I came into the world with a condition known as intestinal malrotation. In layman's terms, that meant that my guts were twisted and I was getting very little nutrition into my body. To make matters worse, I was misdiagnosed from a very young age. And my mum, who knew something seriously was wrong, every time she went to the doctor, she was fobbed off as this overly concerned young mother who didn't know what she was talking about. And the doctor would say, "It's only colic, he's fine." 3 weeks into my young life, things took a turn for the worse. And my mum describes it that I was simply dying in her arms, my body going limp and floppy. So she decided to bypass the doctor. She went straight to the Rotunda hospital and insisted that the doctors took a closer look. Again, they were fobbing her off initially, but she insisted. And she said, "Look, my baby is very sick and his nappies have been bone dry for several days." And with that, the alarm bells went off. They put me on a weighing scales and realised I'd lost half of my birth weight. I was rushed across the Harcourt Street Hospital for emergency surgery. And what many people will be quite shocked to hear, many people don't know this, especially mothers will be shocked to hear this, is that prior to 1985, infants did not receive a general anaesthetic when they went under the knife for surgery. So me and many other infants during that time were given nothing more than a muscle relaxant to stop us squirming on the operating theatre when they were making that incision with the blade. Now, to compound the problems for me in those early days, I actually had complications from that surgery, and I literally cried for the first 18 months of my life in pain. And again, I was not given the sufficient pain meds that I needed. Now, this was based on weak neurological evidence from the 1940s, where the medical practice believed that infants did not experience pain like older humans. The anaesthetic would be too dangerous, which they weren't really correct about that. And sure, they won't remember it anyway. Now, what we know today is that they got that very, very wrong. Research shows that a traumatic experience like that leaves an imprint on your body and brain. It has a huge impact. And if you do that, if you have a huge impact like that, something like that will have a massive way in how you feel and how you navigate the world. Literally, I became a finely tuned anxiety machine because a traumatic event will leave you hyper-vigilant for future threats. So I was constantly scanning the world for future threats and dangers. And that was my life. I grew up with a phobic fear of my heartbeat, breath, and pulse. And throughout my teenage years and my childhood, I struggled with chronic anxiety, panic attacks, and intense bodily agitation. I really struggled with the panic that I was feeling. When I was 16, I finally found my anaesthetic. The doctors never gave it to me, but I found my own. But unfortunately for me, I found it in the shape of heroin. That's a picture of me on the left-hand side, 2 years before I hit rock bottom, from 15 years of chronic heroin addiction. And what I want to get across to people here is that I didn't have an addiction problem per se. That was just the symptoms of an underlying problem, of the root cause. This intense bodily agitation. I was afraid to live in my own body. I struggled with panic and I struggled with anxiety. And that's what addictive behavior is at its core. There's always a root cause driving it. And it's a way that people use to avoid and escape emotional and psychological discomfort. That is the essence of addiction. So where I want to go with this is to talk about a tool that basically saved me. Thankfully, I had an experience in 2013. It wasn't a good experience. It was a near-death experience. And I had what's called a grand mal convulsive seizure that left me in hospital. I drove my teeth through my tongue through the seizure. And I woke up believing I was brain damaged because I couldn't make sense of the outside world. But that experience left a very important mark on me. Something about that caused that moment of surrender where I stopped fighting anxiety. I stopped fighting reality. And I don't know what happened. I wish I could bottle it and give it to other people. But I was looking at the world very suddenly through a completely different lens. An energy came into my body, a drive, a passion, and this thirst and hunger to learn about the human mind. Life had gifted me a second chance. But after so many years of addiction, I struggled to navigate the real world. So with that, I went back to college and I began developing a program that would help me to navigate my internal and external world. I call this my program for life. And it worked. It's helped me to go on to become a neuroscientist, a doctor of psychology, a lecturer in Trinity College and UCD. And I've since founded my own company called Change is Possible, where I've redefined and refined that program, which I deliver to companies both home and abroad. But most importantly, I have completely changed my relationship with anxiety and stress. I have a beautiful relationship with anxiety today. It's my friend, it's my teacher, and it's helped me to develop a toolbox to navigate the challenges of life. Today, I want to talk about one of the most powerful tools in that toolbox. It's a tool that helps me to navigate stress, uncertainty, helps me to make decisions when I feel indecisive, and that's what I want to give you guys today. This tool is grounded in values. And what are our values but beliefs, attitudes, and standards of behavior about what's important in life? And I love that piece, standards of behavior, because honesty is a great value, but I prefer telling the truth. Values should be verbs, and I think that's important. But what's some common values? We hear about integrity, courage, trust, honesty. They're great values, but they can be hard to grab sometimes. Other values, more tangible values that I like to think about, my 3 core personal values are my health, my relationships, and my energy. And how do we think about our own values? The research shows that if you ask people what are your personal values, only 5% of people can actually name their personal values. And it's quite difficult. Sometimes we can't see the wood from the trees. So it's good to take a perspective of other people. There's a couple of questions that I love to ask. It's like, what would you want your loved ones to say about you if you were at your own funeral? Kind, loyal, thoughtful? Or what do you admire in other people? That's a great way to shine a light on your own values. What do you admire in others? Humility, composure. So why are values so important? And that's the crux of what I want to talk about today. Values provide us with a guidance system for life, our North Star, especially when the inevitable challenges of life try to pull us off course. And it's this dichotomy between values-based decisions versus feelings-based decisions, which is really, really important, because life will always try to pull us off course. Stress, relationships, the challenges that we all know about on a daily basis. And I'll give you a couple of examples of this. Imagine you come home from work. It's been a stressful day, stressful week. You're feeling tense, stressed, agitated. You value your health. mentally and emotionally and physically, but you feel like having a bottle of wine or two. Do you make a values-based decision or a feelings-based decision? Imagine you're in the workplace, you're a leader, you have a budget to meet, it's the end of quarter, you're not meeting the budget, pressure from the top, your team aren't pulling their weight, something's not quite right, you have stress at home. You value composure, you value level-headedness, you value empathy for your team, but you feel like reacting emotionally, feelings-based decisions. Or imagine you have a difficult conversation you have to have with someone. It could be your partner, it could be a loved one, it could be a customer, it could be a work colleague. You don't really like conflict, but you value integrity, you value the relationship, you value honesty. So do you have that conversation, even though it's difficult? Or do you let it slide because it feels uncomfortable? And it's this difference between values versus feelings-based decisions which is critical. I want to leave you with an analogy that continues to have a powerful impact on my life. That's a picture of the Great Britain rowing team in the 2000 Olympics. And for every decision that they had to make on the build-up to the Olympics, their coach gave them this simple mantra: will it make the boat go faster? So for every decision they had to make, they'd ask themselves, will it make the boat go faster? If it did, they said yes. If it didn't, they said no. So imagine someone on that team wasn't pulling their weight, something was off, something wasn't quite right. Did they have that conversation or did they let it slide? What would make the boat go faster? They had that difficult conversation, values-based decision. Imagine they woke up one morning and wanted to take the morning off, hit the snooze button because they felt tired or like they wanted to. No way, that would not make the boat go faster. So they got up and went to training. Imagine they had a couple of days off, they wanted to blow off some steam, go out on the lash with their friends. Will it make the boat go faster? No way. So they done what was right for their body and mind because it aligned with where they wanted to go. I loved this mantra. I loved the simplicity and the clarity of this mantra, and I wanted to introduce it into my own life. Of course, I wasn't going to the Olympics. I didn't even have a bow. So I created a metaphorical bow for my own life based on my values. And every time I feel misaligned, every time I feel indecisive and I'm unsure on what direction I have to take, I will ask myself that question: does it align with my values? Does it align with what's most important in my life? Will it make my boat go faster? And that's the simple takeaway that I have for you guys today. Have a little bit of a reflection about your own values. And pick three. Our brains love triads. We remember them quite easily. Pick three core values that will be your North Star, your guidance system for life. And the next time you feel overwhelmed, the next time you feel indecisive, the next time you're struggling for direction in what you have to do, instead of acting on how you feel and taking the easy way out, because the reality is hard choices, values-based decisions lead to a much easier life. But feelings-based decisions, easy choices lead to a much harder life, just like my life of addiction. So the next time you feel stressed and indecisive, ask yourself, does this align with your values? Does this align with what's most important for you in your life? Will this make your boat go faster? Thank you.